this movie roundup, I'll be talking about an all-powerful megalomaniac, mad poultry, and a town overrun with supernatural evildoers. The newly reformed team of mutant heroes take on the world's very first mutant, who seeks to cleanse the Earth of all he deems inferior. I've been a longtime fan of Bryan Singer's X-Men work, so when it was announced that he would be returning to helm this latest and most ambitious installment, there was no skepticism to be had, especially after the rousing success of Days of Future Past. Unfortunately, fourth time is not the charm. Really, this film was handicapped from the start. As thrilled as I was to see the core X-Men members return as their younger incarnations, this should have already happened in first class. That way, by the time the third movie in this new trilogy came about, they would have been fully equipped to take on the big baddie Apocalypse. When you're up against the mutant to end all mutants, your team better be stacked, or you're as good as toast. And they would have been if it weren't for their ever so convenient trump card. Basically, this was an ill-conceived movie with plenty of great moments sprinkled throughout. What really needed to be concentrated on was the development of the baby X-Men, both as individuals and as a team, which again would have had a solid head start if they'd been introduced 2 movies ago. Instead, everything got too bloated for its own good, and the story and its characters suffered in the process, which was most prominent in the third act. At that point, things were being half-assed, turning what should have been an epic showdown into an underwhelming scuffle. You can showcase as much world-ending destruction as you please, but if tension isn't part of the equation, it don't mean squat. When it comes to Apocalypse, I just wanted more. More from Oscar Isaac's delivery, more from his appearance, and more from his power set. Then again, if this villain was allowed to reach his full potential, let's be real, the X-Men wouldn't have stood a chance, because in this point in time, most of them ain't got jack to show for battle experience. Much of the stuff I enjoyed was thanks to the acting. However redundant of a rapport their characters might have, James McAvoy and Michael Fassbender continue to prove themselves as cornerstones of this property. Evan Peters took Quicksilver to new charismatic heights, and as far as newcomers go, I was happy with all the casting choices aside from Olivia Munn and Sophie Turner. They might have had an affinity for their characters, but it didn't translate to their performances. That being said, I will give Sophie props for turning it out in her moment of glory when it counted the most. Way to end on a high note, Jean Grey. I rate X-Men Apocalypse
champion level.
Not the delivery the storyline deserved, still, there was certainly enough good to keep me coming back for more. A flock of flightless birds set out to rescue their egg babies from crafty pig swindlers. I've never played Angry Birds, but since I don't live under a rock, I'm familiar enough with it, at least from a visual standpoint. And from what I could tell, they did an excellent job at translating all the elements of the game. In fact, the movie as a whole was really well made. If only that were enough. No amount of attractiveness can compensate for pedestrian storytelling. From the uninspiring music choices to the lowbrow humor, there's nothing in here you haven't seen before. And speaking of which, I felt like I'd already seen half this movie from the trailers, which only reinforces its lack of substance. What we have here is a kids' movie through and through. There were feeble attempts at catering to adults, but they were more of an afterthought rather than anything clever. I was against this movie from its conception, and after having seen it, I'll admit there was something there, but that something had no elevation, rendering it unworthy of the attention of anyone over the age of 12. I rate the Angry Birds movie
rookie level.
Yet another child-pandering animated experience. On a more positive note, the strong technical execution has me interested in seeing what else this new animation studio has to offer. investigation of a girl's brutal murder uncovers the dark secrets within the town of Hemlock Grove. The supernatural world that encompasses vampires and werewolves is a little overdone by now, but I figured something produced by the master of gore Eli Roth just might tickle my fancy. And it did. Kinda. Sorta. Hemlock Grove had so much promise, but ultimately let me down. It made a habit of starting off each season strong with a compelling storyline, then dwindling to a sloppy mess due to its ADD. It veered off on all these tangents for the sake of character development, which is a good thing in itself, but the problem is nothing ever coalesced. As a result, it seemed to take forever for anything to happen, and I often found myself lost. As deficient as the narrative became, the one constant that kept me caring was Peter Romancic, played by Landon LeBron. His good nature and close family ties kept the series from being derailed by the other despicable characters. Morally compromised is one thing, but these guys were just plain unlikable. The writing was my favorite aspect of this series, especially the degree of banter. There was never a shortage of snarky remarks, which in addition to the carnage and arresting visuals, helped immensely when the story at hand, or lack thereof, wasn't the most engaging. Also, nudity is a thing here, so if you're interested in seeing someone's ass or titty, it's there for your viewing pleasure. I rate Hemlock Grove
in training level.
You had me at hello, then lost me with your inability to piece together a coherent story. That about does it for this movie roundup. Thank you for spending this time with me. See you in the next one, folks.